Hello, hello. Welcome to Finsweet Live. Today we are building a technical build of a calculator. And we're going to do this with Alex Iglesias, CTO of Finsweet. This will be a relatively simple walkthrough. We're building a form with a business loan calculator. And this will finish pretty quickly. So we're going to then open it up to questions, show exactly how we did it, and maybe add to this calculator. So simple walkthrough, won't take up the whole time, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do next based on what you're asking. So Alex, what's up? How are you doing?
Hey, hey everyone. I'm good. And as you
Nice.
were saying this, I was thinking, but perhaps we can just over-engineer this this calculator. Trying to think of because I was thinking, okay, but this is going to be very simple. We just have a couple of things that perhaps we just want to sum couple digits and that's it. But we can always talk about best practices when building this kind of stuff. So I think that we can just do something very basic for the ones who just want to have a couple questions and show a result to the users. But then maybe we can just start, as I said, over engineering this calculator just for fun and trying to see what else we can come up with. So yeah, excited. This is gonna be fun.
It will be. Yeah, I'm happy for this. So let's say hello to the crowd here. We have a nice watching live, Naked Tech. I've been looking at making invoicing software through Webflow, so this should prove interesting as a beginner in JavaScript.
Nice.
Yes, that will require some math. That will require some calculating. Okay, who else we have here? Mika Dixon, good morning. How you doing? Magdalena, hello. Good morning, Penny. How are you from Ontario, Canada? Great. John Matthias, hello, hello. Okay, let's bring up a few more. Pablo Cortez, hello. Nice. It's the same people that come early every time and get their hello comments in, and they get the hello every week. That's great. Thank you for coming. Magic and Nexus, good morning from Montreal. Hello. Okay, let's bring up one more and then we move on. Belmont, hello. What's up? Okay, great. So, Alex, calculator, let's show everybody what we're going to build and then let's start building it.
Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen. The base idea, that's what we're going to what we're aiming for. It's just this very simple business loan calculator that Shopify offers. So that's the main idea. But as we said, we can iterate this as people ask questions. And the base, I'm actually using it for the first time live now. So be aware that I have not prepared this. We're just doing it from scratch. But for what I see, this is just taking the interest rates formula. So you can calculate from a loan the amount of interest that you are going to end up paying, depending on the amount of depending on the amount of money that you're borrowing, and also the length, the time that you're going to take to give back that money. So perhaps we could just see how is that working, because for example, we have four different inputs here, but these inputs, as it might be obvious, you cannot write any text on them because it's number based. So this is one thing that perhaps we can dive in. But yeah, you can add any amount of money that we want to borrow. Let's borrow $500. And then the annual interest rate, this one is changing a lot lately. So I'm not aware of the current one. Perhaps it's something like 4 or 5%, something like that. And we'll say that we want to return that in 10 years. And I don't know what's that exactly, extra monthly payment. Would it be something that I'm providing as extra? What would that be?
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
So
So,
if I'm saying,
it's gonna be $200, and you
so
you
that
pay an additional $200 every month. That's how I would understand it.
every month. Okay, so let's
Oh,
borrow 5,000.
actually,
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
I don't know.
Okay, so this calculates, and this is showing a bunch of results. So we'll do the same, and it's saying that we borrowed $5,000. Um, Okay, I can see now because this is the actual monthly payment, and now this has reduced the time spent paying. Instead of going to 10 years, this is going to just 1.75 years, and it's showing the interest rate, the percentage of it, and then just some results. I think it's a cool project. This is something. It's gonna be fun. Okay.
It is.
So we have this, but if people everyone who's watching, if you happen to have any other suggestions, something that you would like to see, that it would be cool, and if we have time to do that, we could do it. We could jump in it. I think we have a pretty much defined goal. So I'm good to jump in. I don't know if you want to say hi to people, anybody else who's jumping in, but if not, we're good to go.
Let's do it. And I'll encourage everybody
Okay.
to ask questions as we're building. We will only bring up relevant questions, highly relevant questions. If it's not relevant, you can still ask. I'll answer it in chat. But please make this interactive. We're here to answer your questions as we're building.
Cool. Okay. So the only thing that I have right now set up here, it's a fresh clone of client first v2, and then also a fresh repository ready to start coding. Actually, it's not a fresh repository. As I said in the previous stream, what I'm going to do is from now on, I'm going to put all the code from all the streams in the same repository. That way people can just go always to the same place and look for the project of that day. So right now, the famous starter demo repository that we started using, I'm converting it to a monorepo setup. So then every single package that you see this in here, it's just a different stream with a code for that particular stream. So today we have the calculator, and everything is ready.
Quick question from Magica Nexus. So it is a mono repo project. Can you confirm that for him?
Yes, it is.
Great.
It's just a small tweak between us from the developer starter template. It's just tweaking a couple of things to make it a mono repo. And actually, we are going to release soon a new template for mono repos, because this is a setup that we use internally, but we don't have a public template for that. We just have the developer starter template, which if you could share the link, Joe, that would be great. um, and the monorepo starter, that one, it's just going to be something similar, but it's prepared for having multiple packages on the same repo. We can talk about that in another stream, because I think it's something cool to be aware of. Nice, I'm seeing people. Okay, cool. So we have everything here. How about we start building in Webflow? And I hope that I don't need your help for that, but we'll see. So we just want to, for now, let's just create this form and just work with the console, and that's it. Will create this later if we have time with the results, seeing exactly how to display that data. So for now, we just need a form with 4 inputs, and all of them are number inputs I can see, and then just a submit button for calculate, and that's it. That's the base. So let's do it. We need a loan amount, annual interest rate, length term, and extra monthly payments. That's cool. Okay. So we'll start with this section, right, Joe? Please guide me a little bit with client first v2. But this is going to be section underscore calculator. Am I doing it right?
Nice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
And
just think
we'll use a
folders.
container. Yep. Cool. So we'll do a container, and inside there, we'll create a calculator. Actually, this should be a form. like that. Okay, and this calculator, it's just going to be the component that we're going to create. And I don't think we need any styling for that. I believe that we had something for paddings in Client Frisbee 2 for section paddings. Is that correct? Yeah.
For top and bottom? Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. This is looking good already. um, okay. So we're going to need 4 different inputs. It's going to be the loan amount. So let's start doing this loan amount, loan amount. And this is going to be a number input. So far, I think that this default input is a plain, but we'll change it to number. And the base difference between both is that with the numbers, you get basically this number switching in here, and also you cannot write any text. So the browser is already preventing you to write any invalid um, units. Okay, so we have this, and also I like to name stuff properly. So this is going to be loan amount. Let's just say amount like that, and this will be required. Oh, this is going to be a calculator form. Calculator. Okay, I think that we're good. So right now, the only thing that we need to do is duplicate these a bunch of times and change the names. So we'll say, boom. This will be an annual interest rate, then length of term years. So annual interest rate, and this is a percentage. Length of term, this is in years. And then lastly, we just need the extra monthly payment. So we'll say this extra monthly payment, and this is in dollars. Loan amount is probably in dollars. So let's add it. Cool. Okay, let's change this. This is going to be the interest. So by the way, anybody who's following this, if you're ever working with forms, you have to make sure that you're naming properly the forms and you're adding unique IDs to every single input. The reason is accessibility, and also because that's standards. This is how a form is supposed to work. Whenever you're adding a name to a form input, that name, it's how it's going to be labeled, the data that you're sending out to Webflow server, or whenever you're submitting the form anywhere else. Where the receiver of the data of this form is going to see the data by this name. So if I'm calling interest, we know that this is for the interest value. Okay, so we have the interest in here, and this is going to be the length. Let's call it term. Does it make sense to call this term? Valid, yeah. Okay,
Yep.
and this will be extra, like that. Okay, cool. Very basic. We just have 4 inputs. Oh, and not submit, but we want to calculate. Like that. Okay. So our idea is going to be that first the user enters the data, but we don't do anything until the user hits to calculate. And at that moment, it's where we want to retrieve the data from the form, and we want to run any maths to calculate the output. And after that, for now, we will just use the console so we can see what's going on in the background. But after that, we're going to take the UI and we're going to show those results in the UI. So the first thing that I will need is obviously to put some JavaScript code on the page. And for that, as I said, this is based on the developer starter. We have a stream for that. So if you haven't seen yet about this, this is the template that we use in Finsweet. And I'm going to use this to just spin up a local server so I can deliver the JavaScript that I'm writing from my local environment to just the Webflow side. So we can see live everything, every change that we're doing to the code. So I will start by just saying console log hey. I always love to do this just to make sure that everything is running as expected. And then I'm going to run pm dev, which is going to spin up this localhost that just contains the index.js file. So this index.js file, it's the one that it's being converted from whatever TypeScript I'm running here, because today we're going to write TypeScript. It's going to be compiled to JavaScript and then just served in this index.js file that we have here. And as we can see, it's already working as expected. So this is just running my code with the console log. So let's take this and we'll go to the home settings. And in here, we'll just put the script tag like that. This is going to be a default tag with the source like that. And we'll close the script. So essentially, we're saying take the script, use this source, don't run it until the page has finished loading, because we want to make sure that everything has it's already in place, and then run the script. Okay, now we're good to go. Now we're set up. I don't know if we have any questions so far, because I believe that most of the people who's watching this has been watching other streams, so they kind of know already how to set up this. But let's check. Hey, okay, cool. So we have everything ready. Is enough Zoom, Joe? I think so.
Perfect. Perfect.
Perfect Zoom. Okay, that's great. So right now we have the page.
Question.
Go ahead.
A relevant question from Magica Nexus. I tried to go deeper in the template, and I'm wondering, where did you set the console log underline warning in the project?
Yeah, so this underline warning that we're getting, it comes from eslint. So in the template, there are a bunch of tools built in, so that help us improve the developer experience while building. And one of the tools, it's called eslint. And eslint, it's just kind of like a rule set where we can define specific code patterns or code, things that we want to be done in specific ways. And you can add warnings or you can throw errors based on on those rules. And ESLint, for example, there is one rule that it's saying we don't want, or well, we want to warn people if they are slipping a console log in their code, because usually console logging is good for development purposes, but then when you go to production, you don't want to be having a lot of stuff in the console going on, because that's not supposed to be in production. So essentially, there's a rule for in ESLint that it's saying any console log that you see on the page, just underline this, just give a warning. So I know that if I'm about to push this to production, I'm not going to get any errors, but still, I'm going to see this warning kind of reminding me that I should not be slipping this console log to production. But that's it. There are other rules. For example, we have a rule for not using var, and this rule is actually an error. So this rule is enforcing to not use var and instead use const or let. And in that case, ESLint is not only warning me, but it's actually complaining. It is saying, don't use var because this is a rule that it's set, and I'm not going to allow you to do it. I think that we dove into this in the developer starter stream.
Yeah,
so I encourage you to
yeah, let's move on. Focus on calculator stuff.
Yep.
The
Thank you.
Magic and Nexus, watch the first few streams. We cover that more in full.
Okay, so we have here the form. And the good thing about following standards is that we actually don't need any specific JavaScript for enforcing that people write valid numbers here, because I could be just trying to write some text here. But because this is an input number, this is a type number, the browser is not allowing me to write anything else that it's not a number. So that's already handled by HTML by the browser. And also, submitting the form. We're using a form, so we know that whenever we click on this, we must fill everything because these inputs are required. So we're not allowed to submit this form unless everything is as correct to set up. So we can try now. We'll see, I don't know, 10 and 4 and 10, 10, but perhaps 1,000, and then just $10 per month. But obviously, this is just a form right now. This is submitting. So what we want to do now is, instead of allowing this form to submit, we will just intercept that and start running our own logic. So for that, we will need first a bunch of selectors, because every time that you need to interact with the DOM, the first thing that you need to do is determine how to query the elements on the page so you can work with them. And in that case, we have 5 different things that we need to identify. We have the form, and then we have all the inputs, and that's it. No need for the submit button because we already have the form, and we'll see that in a second. So let's start with the form. Let's say I'm just going to use fs element, but this could be any kind of naming convention that you want. If you wonder why I'm using attributes and not CSS classes, go ahead and watch the not the previous one, but the next one, where we talked about tips for managing JavaScript projects in Webflow, and you'll see there why we're using attributes. So I'm using attributes for selecting the elements, and I'm going to say that this is fs element, and this will be the form. That's it. And then we have 4 different inputs, and we want to get those from there. So we'll say, actually, you know what? Let's keep it even more standard, and let's not even identify these inputs. You'll see why in a second. So for now, let's just use the form, and that's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that we want to query the form, and for that we're going to say document.query selector, and we will use the selector that we created, that it's fs element equals to form, and that's it. Now, one thing, we're using TypeScript, and because we're using TypeScript, we can hint the code editor that this is not a regular element, but this is a form element. So here we could pass a generic, and we could say this is an HTML form element. And now TypeScript is going to know that this form variable contains an HTML form element, which will help us later to do stuff. You will see. Okay, but this form obviously could be identified. It could be null. So imagine that for any reason we delete the form on the page. It could happen. There is no form. So we must make sure that this form exists on the page. So we'll say that if there is no form, just return. And that's it. Now in here, whatever we do here, we know that this form, it's available and no errors are going to happen when we work with it. So we'll say, so let's determine exactly what we want to do. We want to listen for form submission events. And inside the form submission event, we want to get the data from the calculator. And then after that, we want to perform any maths, let's say, to calculate the values with the formula. And then we want to display the results. That's it. So we have and actually we could just also say here, query the elements. That was great. Okay. We have a roadmap now. We have some steps that we need to follow. And Joe, please, if there's anybody who has any questions, just let me know. You can stop me at any time.
Will do.
But
yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So first of all, we have a form, and we want to listen for the submission events on that form. So what we can do is say form add event listener, and this is going to add an event listener that's going to notify whenever something happens on the form. And we'll say that this is going to be a submit event. And with that, we will run a function. And inside this function, it's where we want to do this stuff. We want to get the data, we want to perform any maths, and we want to display the results. And this just comes after the form has been submitted. That's it. So we'll say, oh, you know what? Let's just say for now, submit, like that. That's it. So for now, whenever the user submits the form, we'll just output this console log, and you'll see why in a second, because I want to show you what happens when we submit a form and what we need to do to prevent that. So we'll go to the page again. We'll just reload the page. Let's check the console. And in here, let's say that we have a loan of 5,000 with a 2% interest rate for 10 years with no extra monthly payment, whatever. And now something happened. Oh, you know what? I didn't publish the page. Oh, did you see? Did you see now? The good thing, we don't have the code. I mean, this code did not find the form because the attribute was not in place, so no errors happened. Automatically, the code said, "Okay, there's no form. I cannot locate this form, so I'll just return. I will not proceed doing anything else for now." So you can see now why this is helpful, because otherwise this could have been an error. Okay, let's do it again. Let's say 5,000 and this is 2%, 10 years, no monthly payments. Now, again, this is not working. Is this publishing? Let me check. FS element equals to form. So, oh, FS elements. There was a typo there. Let's do it again. 5,000, 2%, 10 years, no monthly payments. And now we have the submit. Okay, so now we're listening for the submit event. Now we know that whenever the user submits the form, we can run some code and do whatever we want. But in this case, the first thing that we want to do is obviously prevent this screen from happening. We don't want to show the user, thank you, your submission has been received. We want to prevent that and instead just do our own thing. So in that case, the way that we do that is we take the event object. So we take the form.add event listen and submit, and then in the callback, we take the event object and we'll say that we prevent default and also we stop propagation. The prevent default is just preventing the form submission, and the stop propagation it's preventing Webflow's JavaScript to do anything else, because Webflow also has some JavaScript on the page that listens for form submissions, and we don't want that. We want to prevent it. So in that case, now we know that whenever we submit the form, let's do it again. This is not being submitted. The only thing that it's happening is my code is running, but that's it. No, thank you for your submission. No sending the data to Webflow, nothing like that. We just have the value for that. Okay, now we're good to go. Now we're ready to start doing other stuff. And I think that so far so good. And I don't see much questions. So I'll hope that everyone is able to follow along. I try to go slow, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm going too slow or I'm going still too fast. But so people, if you have any comments around that, just let me know, because everyone is learning here. I'm learning how to stream. You're learning how to code JavaScript. This is a win-win. Cool. Okay, so first we need to get the data from the calculator. So obviously, there was a reason why I did not add any selectors to all the inputs, because the easiest, I mean, the first thing that most people would have thought of is just saying, okay, I'm going to get every single input and I'm going to read the value from that input, right? But in this case, I know that every single time that we submit the form, that data is going to be there. And in that case, we're just going to say, okay, we'll collect the form data. And for that, we'll pass the form data object. We'll create a new instance of form data and we'll pass the form. Not from, but form, like that. And what's this doing? Let's console log it. Let's console log the form data. I believe that we will not see the exact values now, and you'll see why in a second. Let me do another thing and trace like that. Nope, like that. Don't mind this, you don't need to know what's happening. I just want to show you the actual thing that we're going to get as the data. So let's see now what's happening. We are listening for the form submission, and then we're doing natively what the browsers and servers do. And it just processes the data using the form input names. If you recall, every single input here has a name. We have amount, we have interest, we have term, and we have extra. And this data is being provided exactly like that. So we have the amount, interest, term, and extra. This is why I always tell people, make sure that you're naming properly your inputs, make sure that you're adding unique IDs and all that stuff, because you want to be as standard as possible, because everything it's more accessible, everything it's easier to work with, etc. So we already have the data. We can start doing stuff with it, right? But we just have all the values here as a form data object, but we want to get every single value because we will need it for the formula, right? So in that case, what we can do with this form data object, it's say, okay, the amount, we can say form data get. And with this get, we can pass any form name, and in this case will be amount. And now we know that this in here is going to return the value from the amount. So it's going to return, in this case, 5,000. So let's see. Let's duplicate that, and this will be interest, and this is term, and this is extra, like that. And instead, instead of consoling log the form data, let's console log the variables. So we have amount, we have interest, we have term, and we have extra, like that. Cool tip. If you are starting coding and you want to console log a bunch of stuff, if you do it like that in an object, it's going to be way easier to see than doing in like, amount equals to amount and all this stuff. Because instead of having to write it manually one by one, if you just put it in an object, you'll see what happens then. We have the form, so let's submit it. Annual, 10 years, let's say $20 a month. Now the console log is way simpler to scan because we have an object, and we know that the amount is 5,000 and the rest of the values. Very simple, very easy. We could even tweak this a little bit more and say that put this on a table because it's even easier to see. So let's say like that. And now we have this on a cool table like Excel spreadsheet. Like, it's very simple and very helpful. Okay. Now, time to work with this data. We submitted the form. We got the values. Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say that it's really nice how you use the native tools of the browser. And you do that with attributes too. You use the native tools that the browser gives you and the native tools that Webflow gives you. And then you build the most efficient code based on what's available to you already, that we don't need to specifically say that this is the name. It's the name, that it's already there for us. So this is, I really like this strategy because the browser has this information for us. Let's take advantage of what's being given to us. So really nice and efficient. I like this.
That's kind of a trend right now. There's if you hear a lot of progressive enhancement and things like that, it's just people realizing that we've been this last decade over engineering everything when you could just do simpler stuff by just following conventions and following web standards. So there's a lot of things like this, what I'm doing right now, that there's always a simpler solution. There's always a better way of doing stuff that it's not that over engineered. But still, okay, let's move on. Let's see what else we can do with this. Okay, I don't know you, but I don't know the formula for calculating interest rates. So I'm going to Google it. So this will be, I don't know, calculate interest in a loan, for example. Okay, what's this? Da, da, da. Ooh, this is calculating
You can just make it up.
Let
Just make it
me.
up.
There's gotta be a formula. 1 second. Formula. Uh, give me 10 seconds. If I can't do it, then oh, actually, we got it. It's come on, really? Shame on this website. Okay, so we have a formula here, which is this one. So this is probably calculating the interest, not the interest, but the total amount. So this is asking for the principal amount, which would be the amount. And then it's asking for the interest rate, which is the R. And then it's asking for the T, which is the time involved in years. Simple. Okay, let's do it. So we know that we have an amount, we have an interest, we have a term, and then we'll deal with the actual later. We'll think about that. So let me just copy that formula from here to a comment. So I'll just remember this. Okay, and we know that we need to do, so the total, it's going to be the amount, and you'll see one thing in a second, and then the interest, and then the term. The amount would be the P, the interest would be the R, and the term would be the T, right? But see what's happening now. We're getting an error here. What the hell is going on, right? One thing that you need to know when you're working with forms is that every single value, it's always a string, always. It doesn't matter if this is a number input. It doesn't matter if it's a phone input. It doesn't matter if it's a password input. Everything that you're getting, it's always a string. So the values that I'm getting here, it's not 5,000 as a number. It's 5,000 as a string. So I've as if written instead of being a number. So what we need to do first is we need to take this string and convert it to a number, right? So we can do either just put it in here like that number. We could do it very quick. There are a bunch of ways that you can convert a string to a number. This is one of them. So you just use the built-in number object from the browser, and this will take any value and try to convert it to a string. Sorry, to a number. Obviously, we know that this is going to be always okay because this is a number input, so I cannot type any text. So this means that this number, it's going to be always okay. But if for any reason you were using an input that could contain, characters, some text, in that case, you would have to ensure that the converted number, it's actually valid and it's not throwing an error, because in that case, it would become not a number. So it would be a none. But that's not the case. Let's just simplify stuff. So we have a total. Let's just console log total like that. And let's try it. So let's pick again 5,000, interest rate of 4% and 20 years. And for now, we don't care about the monthly payment. And we know that, is that correct? $400,000? I don't think that's the case. So that's probably, oh, you know what? Because probably the interest, it should be as a percentage. Yep. So the interest should be divided by 100. So this would be interest divided by 100. I'll just put it on brackets like that. So the interest, whatever value we put on, it should be divided by 100. Okay, so let's do it again. 5,000, 2%, 10 years. 0. And this is probably the amount of interest that we're paying. Would make sense, right? Because it's a 2% for 10 years from a 5,000 amount. I would say that this is then the total of interest that we're paying. So we know that in total, we have given back 6,000. So we have the 5,000 plus the total, but let me make sure. So, yeah, we're calculating the total interest. So this means that this $1,000, it's on top of the money that we were about to return. Okay, that's cool. We have the first step. So we're collecting the inputs. We're performing the math for calculating the total interest. Yeah, good comment, Emily. So we put a 0% interest. We have zero interests. If we put a 1%, they should be 500 in total. Okay, cool. We're good. Thank you, Emily. So what else do we need to do? Because in this case, we need to support the extra monthly payment. And I don't know exactly how's that going to be. Because every month you're paying back, so the interest rate should be applying to less and less amount of money, right? So I don't know if that's a separate formula. How to calculate loan payment. Let me see. Formula for a loan with extra payments. We'll try to make it right. And if not, we'll see. We'll just skip the amortization. It would be cool if they provided a formula that it's not Excel. Adding extra principal payment. They will be deducted from the loan balance. Let's see. Extra calculators. I believe that this is the same thing. Perhaps we can just figure it out ourselves. How to make a loan amortization in Excel. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I don't think the specifics of this is that important. I think it's more important to show just how these form fields can do math with each other. So let's just make sure we understand this part. Let's remove the extra monthly payment. And I would also like to touch on a question that Spencer had about validating text or validating some number in a field.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, cool. So, do you want to go over what just happened? Is there some explanation needed, or are we ready to move on to another step?
Well, if he or she, I don't know who's asking, wants to know exactly why we're converting and how we're doing it from a string to a number. So, as I said, all the data that it's coming from the form, it's just a string. It's either a string or a file, because if you're uploading a file, then you would get that file. But in this case, we know that this is going to be a string, and that's it. So whenever you have a string, so let's say test, for example, and this is going to be 1, 2, 3. Let's do it in the console. Let's do it here. So let's create a variable. Let's call it test, and this variable will contain a string, right? This is a string that has a number on it, but in JavaScript, when you work with strings, you can do weird stuff like this. So test2 equals to 4. And let me define this. So, okay, we have two variables. One variable that contains a string with 1, and then one variable that contains a string with 4, right? So, okay, let's make a guess. What do you think is going to happen if I sum test plus test2? What do you think is going to be the result, Joe? Make a wild guess.
I would have to say 5.
5, right? Okay,
I would have to
that's
say
logic.
that.
You would expect that 1 plus 4 it's 5, right? But okay, let's check it out. What's happening here? It's 14. What the hell, right? Okay, so the thing is that a string, it's considered, as a character, as you were writing anything, right? So when you're working with strings in JavaScript, when you sum two strings, you're not summing numbers, you're just concatenating the strings. So you're picking 1 and you're picking 4, you're just putting it one next to the other. You're just picking two characters and you're concatenating it, right? Um, because JavaScript is working with this value as if it was a string, right? But when you want to do math, you want to make sure that the value you're working with is a number. So when you do 1 plus 4, it's actually 5, because JavaScript then knows that these are numbers and you're summing the values, not concatenating them. So there are a bunch of ways that you can change a value from a string to a number. The easiest ones, well, I'll just say a bunch of them. So you can use the number like that. This is just a
And that's what
built-in
you use in
object.
the code.
Correct. I'm just using this.
That was the method. Okay, great.
Yeah, but there are other methods. There is, you could say plus sign and then 1, 2, 3. And this is also converting it. You could also say parse int. And then inside this, you're saying 1, 2, 3. So essentially you're saying, okay, take this string and convert it to an integer. And an integer, it's a number that doesn't have any decimals. So actually this method, if I say 1, 2, 3 dot 4, 5, 6, it's always going to return just the integer part of it, not the decimal part. We can also say parse float like that. And in that case, a float, it's just the translation for float is just a decimal. So a number that has decimals in it. So in that case, if we do it like that, it will work. We have, we can use the built-in number. We can just prefix with the plus sign. We can use the parse int. We can use parse float. Probably there's other ways of doing it. There are slight differences between each one of them. So if you're really interested on that, I recommend that you Google it, because I remember that there is a table that you can just compare what happens with every single method of this, and when you hit specific use cases. So for example, imagine that we're trying to convert x545 I8 like that. This is a string, but not only contains numbers, it also contains with stuff, right? And so the number is going to return not a number, but then if we do plus sign, perhaps also the same. But if we do parse int, perhaps I'm going to get the same result for everywhere. So this is not a good use case. It's not a good use case, but just be aware that there are specific cases where every single method of these changes the output based on whatever the string contains. If it contains some special characters, if it just contains numbers, things like that. So go ahead and check it out. And
question from
just
the
going back to the code.
audience.
Go ahead.
Question, there's some comments between Emily and Magica Nexus about the number input of a Webflow form. So if you go and put a number input in Webflow, does this get submitted as a number or a string?
Always a string.
Always a string. And this is not a Webflow thing. This is a forms on the internet thing. Okay. Okay.
In forms, you can only have two different type of data that you're getting, either a string or a stream, which would be it would be a file, basically.
Yeah.
Just a blob, something, a file, and that's what contains it. That's it. There's no way that you can get any other thing. So it's up to the developer, whoever is processing that data in the server, or me, who I'm writing currently the code for the calculator. It's up to us to expect a specific type and make sure that we are dealing with that type. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking the value from the form and I'm converting it to a number to make sure that I can work with it. And that's it. I think that we have 10 minutes, so perhaps the last thing that we could do is display that data on the page.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's an
so we
important
could
one.
say, yeah, so we could say, I know that we have not completed the entire thing, but we could just show the total of it,
Sure.
because the
Let's
rest
let's
it's
show two
probably,
different numbers. Let's show two
or
values.
average. Yeah, the average monthly, the monthly payment, we could say, perhaps,
Sure.
if we decide that that monthly payment would be always the same one. Okay, so let's just build it in Webflow first. So we have the form, and then we'll just create another section just to be organized. By the way, data, we're talking about standards. Let's just make everything standard. Let's make this a section. Okay, and this is going to be section results, like that, and we'll make it a section. And inside, let's put a container. I think it was the small one. And I'll just put a div. Okay, so this will be results wrapper. Are we allowed now to use wrapper words in client first v2, Joe? Or is this
Yes.
something that we
Yeah,
should do?
absolutely.
We
No,
can?
no,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's just put for now, I don't want to make it pretty. I just want to say, okay, results. And we want to say that, let's just put a flex here with a gap. So we have a bit of space between rows. Let's say one run between rows. And in here, let's put a text block, and we want to put loan amount and what else? Total amount, probably, right? Total amount, and then monthly payment. And perhaps we should also say the interest amount. So we actually have 4 things to display. And let me add some padding here. So this is padding is right section, padding large. Nice. Okay. So we want to show the amount, the loan amount. We want to show the interest, the total paid interest. We want to show the total amount, so the loan amount and the interest amount. And then let's divide that by 12 so we know the monthly payment, right? And obviously we want to display the data, but not in here. We want to just display it in here where we have that small dash. So what I'm going to do is just wrap that in a span, and then I will use attributes to define that this is a specific element that I want to work with. And this is going to be fs element and say result loan. Yeah, I think we can do this. Result loan. And now this will be fs element, and this will be results interest. And I'll go fast because I know we're running out of time. Is text span, and this will be fs element result total, and this will be fs element result monthly. Okay, so we have defined the elements that we want to update with those values. Now we need to query them and change the text from that. So we'll go back up here, and let me just clone this a bunch of times, and I'll say results. There was loan interest total and monthly. So this will be result loan. And this is fs element, fs element result loan. Let me just do this. So we know that result interest, result total, and result monthly, like that. But I don't want this to be uppercase. I want this to be lowercase, like that, monthly. Cool. And I'll just do the same. If any of these values it's not existing, I'll just return from the function to make sure that we don't have any issues when running it. So we'll make sure that all of the elements exist. Essentially, what I'm saying is, if there is no form or no result loan or no result interest or no result total or no result monthly elements, just go ahead and return from the function. Don't do anything else, and that's it. Caleb, what I'm using this multi copy paste tool, it's something that it's built in Windows. I'm a Windows user, and this is something that you can use. I don't know what would be the same for Mac if you're a Mac user, but probably there's something that you can use. Okay, so we have the total. So now let's say we want to display a bunch of data. We want to display the total interest. So this is the total interest. We want to now get the, we already have the amount. We have the total interest, so we want to get the total. This will be something. And the total would be the original amount and the total interest, right? So we can say that the amount as a number plus the total interest, it's going to be the total that we are paying to the bank or whoever is loaning us the money. And the last thing is that the monthly payment will be the total divided by 12. Simple as that. Cool. So we have 4 values that we want to display. We want to display the amount, we want to display the total interest, we want to display the total, and we want to display the monthly payment. And that's it. What we can do then is just pick these elements and we will update the text from them. It's as simple as just saying result loan text content. And this text content is going to be the amount. So the first thing that you would think of is just saying that. But again, now we're getting an error. And this is just because of thanks to TypeScript. We're getting an error because I'm trying to put a number type into a text content who's expecting a string, right? So we need to make sure that the value that we're passing, it's not a number, it's a string. In the case of amount, I already have that value here as a string. So I'll just say this, and that's it. Oh, right? Okay. Let me just say to string like that, and you'll see now in a second why. Because I was expecting that all of this was existing, but it could happen that it's not existing. So if there is, so I'll do the same. So essentially, TypeScript has now warned me, like, hey, you're assuming that this data is coming from the form, but maybe this data is not there. Maybe there's an input that it's missing. I don't know, whatever. So in this case, TypeScript was warning me, hey, this might not be there. Be aware of this. Okay, but now we know that result loan, we want to display also the result interest. And in that case, we want to take the total interest. Let me remove this question mark because it's not applicable. The total interest, and because I know that it's a string, I know that it's a number, sorry. I want to convert that to a string first before setting it as the text content of the element. So we'll do the same here. We'll say result total, right? Result total, and this will be just the total. And result monthly, this will be the monthly payment. Let me remove console logs, display the results here, and now we're good to go. Okay, so let me recap everything that I did because I went a little bit fast just for the sake of time. We have the values, and what we want to do now is query the elements and then update the text of those elements with the value that I want to work with, that I want to display. In this case, in the result loan, I want to put the loan amount. In the result interest, I want to put the total interest, and so on. And lastly, because I'm updating the text property of an element, the browser is expecting me to pass a string to it. So TypeScript was complaining, hey, but you're trying to put a number value, type number, it's not assignable to type string. The reason is because this is a number, but this method is expecting a string. So we saved. We need to publish. So let's publish again. I see a lot of people still talking about the copy paste.
It's
I
a
seen
hot
that.
topic right now in the chat.
Yeah, it is. Okay, do we have the stuff here? Yeah. Okay, so we'll say loan amount 1,000, interest rate 4%, 20 years. Let's just calculate that. And cool, we have the values here. But you know what? It's actually not as cool as it could be because we're just displaying the number and that's it, right? So ideally, this should be converted to a currency. And for that, we can actually convert this to a currency by just saying, I think it was locale. Let me try something. Second. To locale string, and here we can pass and US. Stay with me. I'm just trying something. And this is going to be currency. Oh no, this should be the currency, which is dollars. Let me try it again, and then I'll explain what the hell did I just do. 5,000, 2%, 10 years. And something broke. Should it be US? USD? Probably USD. Let me do it again. Super quick. I'm always running out of time. Nope. Okay, just be aware that there's a way of taking a number and showing the output as a currency. For now, I know that's the time. I don't want to be spending a lot of time now debugging why this is not working, but just be aware that this is possible to do. So I'll just put it back to string like that. And that's it. 1,000, 2%, 10 years. And it's showing $1,200 in interest, total amount of 1,200. So the monthly payment is 100. Cool. We have our calculator. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Nice. Great walkthrough. That was a nice calculator build. You can use this mentality to build any type of calculator. That math on top, you can change that math however you want. It can be any type of calculator. So just the idea of grabbing the values or reading the values and then displaying them in text, super valuable for many, many use cases. So, Alex, thoughts about the stream? Any final thoughts, final messages to the audience here?
I don't know. I always say, just go ahead and try to do it yourself. Don't just copy the code from this stream because you can see that it's pretty basic what we did. Bunch of inputs. We're just making a simple math and then outputting this. But this very simple bit of code that we added to the site, this is now giving you a new skill of telling your clients, hey, I can build a calculator for you that's making any math that you want, and you can put it on the site. And this is like a superpower. This is something that you would never be able to do natively here in Webflow. This is an additional thing that you're offering. So go ahead and try it yourself. Go ahead and try to build a calculator. Perhaps it should not be about loan amounts, but it could be about how much money do I owe to my friend after the party of last Sunday. I don't know. Whatever you think it would be valuable for you, just go ahead and try to do it because you'll see value in that.
Or find a way to do it on your client site and just do it for free. Just get it built in there. And then next time you want to sell a calculator to somebody, you can say, look, I implemented it on this site. So just go for it. Try it out. Do something like Alex said. It's the best way to learn. Excellent. Okay, so that's the end of this stream. Next week, we will be live on Tuesday doing a live build. Next Friday, we'll be back again with a live build. Next week, we're also competing in the Reloom Design League. We are competing in the Speed Build Challenge. So it's a big week, and we'll hope you have a great weekend. Alex, any final message for the audience?
Thank you for being here. I'm just seeing a message from a user. He's saying that he messaged me on Twitter and I did not message back. That can happen because I tend to not look at messages in anywhere. So I'm sorry for that, but feel free to ask again. It's not like am I ignoring you because I don't want to answer you back. It's just because I haven't seen it. So go ahead and you did good. Ask me again, and probably sometime I will answer back. But yeah, thank you again for being here, for staying with us. It's very nice.
Awesome. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be back next week and we'll continue the learning. Talk soon.
Thank you all. Bye.